P206. Pressurized, right? No. Passenger. We're going to go over the model year changes of the P206s. So, Mark from Skywaggon University, and we're going to do a model year changes video on the year production model and all the differences in and out of the P206 range, which is 64 to 70 inclusive. And as I said just now, everybody thinks that P206 is pressurized, like a P210 is pressurized, but a P206 is a passenger 206. And they have two front doors. The U, which was produced in 64 and is currently available today, new for $1 million, they had a gap of 86 to 97 off, and then the restart planes. The U is utility with the two double doors on the back. So there's a front left door, and then double rear doors, and no right front door for the co-pilot. P206s have that right front door. And the reason they've got it is because they came from the 205, and without getting into all the model, there's a model years video change thing on the 205s on this same channel, but the 205s have got longer ailerons, shorter flaps, 182 wing basically, and a narrower tail. So we're going to go around this. And so when the 206 came out, it was a 520 in it. 205 has a 470 in it, both injected, 260 horse in the 205, 285 in the 206 horsepower. If you're going to go to Cessna and you're going to buy a plane and it's close in price, you buy the bigger engine. You buy the better aileron flap. You buy the new model. So the P206 was so popular, and the 206 in general was so popular, they stopped making the 205. They made 2 years of them, 63 and 64. This came out in 64. This is a 67. So when it came out, they just dropped the 205, but they had the fuselages left and the jigs left, so they used them up with the P206 and ended them in 1970. So let's look around it closely and see what makes a P206. Pilot's door and co-pilot door, just like a 182. In fact, the real name of these planes is a super skylane, and a 182 is a skylane. So this is a super skylane because it's bigger, wider, fatter, longer, and 6 seats. So 206s have 6 seats, 182s have 4 seats, sometimes a 5th seat in the baggage area. So it's the bigger, wider, longer fuselage with 6 seats in it with 2 front doors. And it's as useful as a 182 because of the right front door. If this had a float kit or was on floats, that means that the co-pilot can pile out and fend off a dock or deflect from a tree or paddle away from an obstacle. But if it hadn't got that right front door and it's on floats, the co-pilot's trapped in it. So you've got to have somebody climb out the back or don't hit something. So the right front door is very, very useful just for like general 182 type utility. If you've got a piano or an anvil collection or encyclopedias or something, you need that double door, you need the double door, that's a U. But these Ps, just because they are not as common, a lot of people don't know they even exist. And even in the beginning when I was selling planes, I actually advertised some P206s in the Skylane section. So that people go, whoa, 2 front doors, that would work, and they buy it instead of a 182. And they're similarly priced to a 182, but they're injected and they have 520s in them, which we will now have a look at. So just like all the 206s, they have a line of fasteners down the center and each side comes off, whereas a 182, the whole top comes off. So this is like 205s, 206s, pre-undone. I didn't do that on camera. There's its cowling. There's the engine, obviously. So it's an IO 520. And if anybody's regularly watching these and knows what that means, it's I is injected, O is opposed, horizontally opposed, 520 is the number of cubic inches displacement. Here's the fuel injection lines. It's a bumpy backed case. You can see the bumps along the top of the case. In fact, is it a... No, it's not a 7th stud. It's a bumpy back case. Air filter here. So the air just rushes in the front, over the top, straight into the air filter here. And there's some ducts for heating and stuff for the inside. 2 exhausts. So it's not a single exhaust with 1 pipe. There's one this side and there's one that side. There's 3 into 1 and out. So that's why it sounds cool when it's running, because it's whoop, 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 rather than just all 6 coming out of 1 pipe. Batteries here. This is induction. Goes round into the injection fuel flow manifold underneath. Alternator, dipstick, and there's a hole in the cowling for that. You don't have to take your cowling off to get at it. Dipstick here, you have to twist and pull, look at it. Should be on about 10. 285 horsepower at 2700 RPM, which is 25 horsepower more than a 205. The 205 is an IO 470 at 260 horse. So you get the bigger engine in the 206 as well, even though you could put this engine in a 205. But there's some airframe differences too. So there's the engine of it. So a recent video that we did was on the differences between a 182 and a 206, and I got a bit geeky on it, details. The 206 in that was a 78. This is a 67. 70, they lose the chin. This is the chin, because this fuselage was also 205, 206, and 210s of the same year. So the 64, 65, and 66, 210s of this fuselage. And a 210 is retractable, and retractables have gear doors. These are the gear doors on a 206, fixed. So they just screw them shut. If I undid those and opened that, there'd be a big cavity in there where the wheel would go in. So that was irrelevant in a 206, but they left it on. But in 70, cosmetically, they cleaned it up. So 64 through 69 206s, P206s, 206s, have chins. 70 and newer 206s have the smooth lower cowling. So there's, if you want a P206 with no chin, you've got to buy a 70. That's the only year that has no chin. So that is an easily identifiable. You look at the front, you go, pre-69, it's got a chin. And if it's got no wheel pants, it's a 210. Or if it's a 206 without wheel pants, you might think it's a 210, but it doesn't have gear doors, so you've got to look. But that's a 69 and older feature to have the chin on it. And there's actually a speed mod that gets rid of them, and it still has a bulge, but it's just less. But you know, it just makes it look a bit more 210-ish. And then the other thing that identifies it by year is the tail. So we'll go around and look at that. Tails. 205s have, I'm probably not going to be right to the inch, but like 10.5 feet width, complete width of the horizontal. P206s have an 11-foot 8-inch horizontal stabilizer, so nearly a foot more than a 205. And a 206, all of them from 68 and newer, have the flat skin tail that was in that video we did with the 182 comparison. It's just a flat skin horizontal stabilizer. It's 13 feet wide. So they got much wider tails. So if you see a narrow tail and a chin, that means this is a 67. If it had no chin, it's a 70. If it's got a narrow tail, it's a pre-68. So you're narrowing it down a bit. So this, I would look at it and go, oh, that's a pre-68 to a P206. And the end number would give it away as a 67, but that's... So this narrow tail ends in 67. So 68's wide tail and chin, 69 is wide tail and chin, 70 is wide tail, no chin, 71 they don't exist. So that's another giveaway. Tail, same vertical, same rudder, same fuselage, same window configuration. And then while we're at it, flaps and aileron configuration. Let's have a close look at those. The 205s have, and the reason I keep referring to 205s is because this is that fuselage. The 205s have got the 182 wing on it, so where the kink is here, the kink in the wing, is where the flap and aileron separate in a 182, and that's where a 205 has its aileron flap separation. 206 is it's here. Watch this. I'll put them down. On, down. Big flaps, long. Master off. Don't hit your head. So see how much longer it is. This is the 182 205 is that way, and the 206s and the 64, 65, and 66 210s have this extra piece. And then the assumption is, oh, if the wing is the same length and the flap's longer, the aileron's shorter, but it isn't. So the aileron is this thick, and on a 182 it's this thick. You can see the size of it. So it's got a much more effective aileron on a 206 and a much more effective flap on a 206. So that would be, if I saw this at a glance on a ramp and I thought, ooh, 205, I'd look at its flap aileron configuration and know that it was actually a 206, because you can't tell if it's 520 by looking at it from the outside. And since I mentioned that, all 205s and 206s of this vintage had two blades, like a C58 or just a normal Macaulay two blade. That's an upgrade, a good one too. That's a major upgrade, a Scimitar 3-blade. It's much more dynamically balanced with a 6-cylinder engine, so that's a nice upgrade on it too. So that would have given it away. Flaps and aileron configuration. Baggage door, big deal. 206s, the whole point of a 206 is utility and cabin size and carrying weight. This thing carries about 1,580 pounds. The baggage door is big. If this was a 182, of course, you'd have a little baggage door about that big, no window in it. So you lose that double door on the other side on a P206 for your airborne piano deliveries, but you get this, which is the same as in a 205, which is a decent sized door, the window in it and seats. Kids can jump in and out of there. They are real seats too. They're not like they're not like little kid seats that you have to sort of crouch in. They've got a footwell. You can sit in them. The middle row moves forward, so it's actually a real 6-seater. And if this fuselage, which I said was used in the 64, 65 and 66 210s with struts and 520s in the same wing, the gear well is here. So the gear swings up and goes inside, so the seat can't be that low. So when it's this door configuration in a 64, 65 and 66 210, the seats are occasional seats and they are not very practical. They're raised up, they have a big block under them, the wheels underneath, there's a little back you barely use, and a lot of them are actually 4-seaters. So the 210 is modified because it's retractable because of the wheel well, but the 206 is really a 6-seater with good access. And then we'll go around the other side and just quickly look at that other front door, because it's all about getting in and out and what you can carry in these. So if this was a U206, there'd be a handle here, doors here, both open, and obviously underneath this flap, this would be the aileron. Okay, I'll get detail with that. Sorry, detail here. This flap on a U206 is about that much shorter than the other side, so this door can open into it in an emergency if it was down. So a P206 has got the full-size flap on the right. But here are the doors. Normal front door, just like a 182, get in and out. Front 4 seats through this door, rear 2 seats through that door on the other side. No utility doors here. So super Skylane. It's basically just a fuel injected 182 with, another whatever horsepower and a 520 engine in it. Spring steel gear, they always had that. Pointy wheel pants, period correct for the 60s. And then inside we'll have a look at it. It's retro, but it's in good shape. Let's have a look inside. Here we are inside the old girl. It's like a school bus. Rows of seats, wide cabin, big. This is a typical configuration of this year because it doesn't have the Garmin screens or anything in it. So there's a couple of King nav comms, glide slope and localizer, DME, GPS, another GPS, a transponder with ADSB in and out, intercom in the stack, and then an S-Tech autopilot with altitude hold here, and the usual configuration of gyros, 3-light marker beacon, audio panel up here, and then autopilot disconnect, push to talk on the yoke, but very typical of the year with the sort of fake wood grain from the 60s here. And then, like all 206s, left, right, no both. That is not both, that is off. That will quit. So you've got left and right, and it's long range fuel. So some 205s or even some 206s had 65 gallons, but this is 84 gallons long range fuel. So fuel selector there. And obviously controls on both sides, but very conventional. If you've flown a 182, you can fly a 206. They're the same, it's just bigger. And now we're going to go outside and look at an extra detail that I actually forgot in another video, but we'll look at it now. In the 182-206 comparison video where I got really into it, and I said, Joe Stansel, my ex-boss, he's the only person who makes me look like a dunce with the information. He called me after that video and he said, that worked, that was brilliant, but you forgot something. I said, what was it? Oh my God, I thought I'd covered it all. 206 struts are thicker. They're that thick. 206s and 185s have struts this thick, which is like 6 inches. 182s and 205s and 180s and 172s all have a narrower strut, probably an inch. But this is much heavier duty to the point where it actually does touch. Because it's bigger, it'll touch the door. A 185 you'll see that, and 206s you'll see that. So they put door stewards on to limit the travel. But they've got bigger struts, 206s. That's another giveaway over a 205. I've just seen this and remembered it, but I haven't got the exact model year differences types. But 206s also have got an extended crank, so they stick forward a little bit more pointy on the nose with this. If you look on a 205 and 182s, the spinner is much closer to the front of the cowling, and then you get into later 206s with the no chin, you have intakes on the side, you have turbo intakes, and it's a bit more modern looking. So this front area looks a little bit older on the older planes because they're older. And it's still got the 3 holes, which we mentioned in that other video, and we can actually look at them now, because I told a story which kind of was irrelevant. I was at an air show, and somebody said, what are the 3 holes? And I said, it's for pulling the plane into the hangar like a bowling ball, and then laughed, and they thought that I was serious. But I think they just cool oil, a sump, or there's an intake or something under the cowling that's in there. But that 78 we had those covered up. So the front is slightly different on the older planes. A bit pointier, weirdly. Normally you'd think they get more modern, they get pointier, but they don't. This is like that in 67. So that is a 67 P206. Quite a rare plane and very, very useful. So yeah, we do these videos on model year changes and types and some comparisons when I get one in that's interesting. And there's a lot of planes I want to do videos on, but I can't do them unless I got the plane. So if you've got the plane, like an Ag Cat or something cool, you know, bring it in and I'll do an owner interview and we can talk about the plane. If I don't know much about it, if it's some weird thing like an MU2, I can still talk to you about it because you're the owner and you know about it. But so yeah, this is Skywagon University, and this video this week was sponsored by the Flemming Jones Homestead Airbnb, which weirdly is mine, at the end of the runway. So if you want to stay somewhere in the Placerville area, you can stay in that Airbnb right on the farm at the end of the runway, at the end of runway 23 down in the valley, and it's on Airbnb, and it's called the Flemming Jones Homestead Milk House. So that's something to consider if you're in the area. And if you like these videos, click on subscribe, and we've got the bell for notification, and we'll carry on doing them as we get planes in. Thanks for watching.